And what that means is that if you want to be something or do something else, you have to become a different person. If you want to be healthy, if you're sick and you want to be healthy, you have to be that healthy person before your health changes. If you want to be wealthy or if you want to be loved, you have to be a loving person. You have to be, think, feel like a wealthy or a loving person before that ever is going to happen to you. And so that opened my eyes to what I could do. And so I said, look, I want the rest of my life, I want to be able to share this knowledge that I've gained over 30 years. And I want to empower people to become educated. Now, I've been reading a lot of books, and what I found out is that, education was never meant for the masses. Education was for the elite. If you look back in history, you'll see it was only elitists that went to college or whatever. And they were educated in the real mysteries, the inner workings of life and how nature and how the world works. And the elite, they held education so that they held on to education and made it very hard to obtain because then you could control the masses. Okay. And if you could control how they think, if you can limit what they're exposed to, and you can narrow down their focus, it makes them very easy to control. And that's why, I don't want to be too controversial. That's why they try to control the curriculum in schools. That's why they try to control you spiritually with religion. Okay, is that they try and narrow you down and they don't want you to look outside of what they want you to focus on. And that happened to me in medical school, is that they narrowed down my focus, that I only looked at pharmacology. They didn't want me to look at anything else. Don't look at chiropractor. Don't look at homeopathy. Don't look at any of that stuff. And that's ridiculous. Okay. And now with social media and YouTube or whatever, uh, if you are ignorant about certain things, it's by choice because no one controls the flow of information anymore. And that's why people, a lot of doctors, they hate for patients to come in after they've searched on Google. Now, there's a lot of crazy information out there, that's for sure. But there's a lot of good information out there. And I'll tell you, because of YouTube and opening or expanding my horizons, it has allowed me to be a different person. It has allowed me to be excited about my future at age 65. Okay. A lot of people can't understand it. How can you be so sure and so happy about your future? It's because I'm living that right now. A lot of the things that I have envisioned for myself and for this whole platform, it hasn't happened yet, but I already am living like it has happened. And that is one of those mysteries, those keys that people have been sharing orally since back 10,000 years ago. Let me tell you what I learned when I went to Egypt in December, is that I've learned that we may not be the smartest people that ever lived. Okay. Now that's hard for us to believe. We think that we're so advanced, but we may not be the smartest people who've ever lived on this planet. And you go to Egypt and you see those temples and you see what they were able to create thousands of years ago. And you begin to understand that maybe there's information to be learned, not by looking at what's new, but by looking at what's old. There's a saying that says, if you want new ideas, you should read old books. And I can't tell you how true that is. When I wanted to have new ideas about hormones and hormone replacement, I looked at the old physiology book and it gave me all of these new ideas. When I look at these old books, you look at the mystery teachings, the information that was transmitted orally for thousands of years to help people to understand the blueprint to life and vitality and purpose. And you begin to say, hey, look, maybe those people knew something that we need to know, we need to regain. And I think that we've lost a lot of the connection that we used to have with the higher power, with the the ultimate intelligence. And again, that, you have to expand your mind a little bit to understand, but we're going to stay basic here. But I just wanted to say that is that the school platform, it's here to educate the masses so that you don't have to bow down to authority. I told you I had an oncology patient who she asked the doctor what could she do to help herself, how could she be involved in her own wellness and healing. And the doctor said, there's nothing you can do, just do the chemo and the radiation. That's asinine, and don't listen to that. You need to do your own research. You have to be your own advocate for your health care. And I'm here to try and help you sift through some of the information you might be getting, because even when we're talking about hormones and natural hormone replacement, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I feel obligated to try and be that reasonable voice. So anyway, so Rebel, I don't want to keep rambling on. You have any questions, or does that make any sense? You have anything you want to add or subtract from that before I start with the slides?
Definitely makes sense. And the reading old books, that is genius. Absolutely genius. Because people wrote things and they put them in there, and then they took it all away and they forgot about it, or they wanted you just not to listen to this. Yeah. So if you go back and read things, you might learn a thing or two.
Yep. Now, I'm going to tell you, when Egypt and these old civilizations were conquered, they wanted to destroy all those records. You see the Dead Sea Scrolls and all. It wasn't an accident that it was thousands of years before we discovered those. There was information there that they didn't want the masses to know, so that they could continue to control and have their royalty and their kingdoms or whatever. Is that you have to keep them ignorant. In slavery, the number one thing was to keep the slaves ignorant. And when they're ignorant, you can try and control them. But there's something.
They knew more than the people who had them enslaved. They had knowledge that if only people knew, and it's coming out now. You can learn things from people. Yes. And you need to hear things. And if you impart these things that people are teaching, you'll be better off.
Yeah. Hey, look, I took that reality creator course. It changed me. And that's what we're talking about. I want this to be more than information. I want it to be transformation, is that you transform yourself and taking full control of your life. And that means that you evaluate everything you see or hear. I don't care how many degrees a person has. I didn't do the background with my degrees, because that I'm not trying to be an authority. I'm trying to empower you to take control of your life. I took control of my future. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave a legacy that this doc was trying to help me to better understand myself, so that I could take control of my future. So let's just look. And I will tell you, when you feel like you are a victim and you have no control, that is probably the number one thing that decreases your energy. So let's talk about those real quick, and let's just go from there. So let's go from the first slide. So 5 things that are killing your energy after 40, and it could be even before 40, and how to reverse them. And I think this is the first thing I want to say is that when you are not doing what you should be doing, what God sent you here to do, you are out of alignment. And sometimes it takes a lot of trial and error to figure out what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to do different things at different points in your life. And we all know that. You have a time where you're supposed to be educated, you go to school and everything. Then again, they make you narrow down your focus and say, what do you want to study? What do you want to major in? And then, you decide on that, and you become an adult, and you start to work, and you get married, and you have children. And me personally, I became an OBGYN. I became a father. Then I all of a sudden I had an idea to write a book, and me and my wife, we wrote those 2 books. And then when you write a book, a lot of times you get asked to speak. So I had to learn and how to become a speaker. And then I really got interested in functional medicine. So anyway, you have different times that you should be aligned with what you're supposed to do, but it's all developing you in order for you to continue to grow and expand. And so I'm still growing and expanding even at my age at 64, 65. And, I keep saying that because I see so many people in their 60s and 70s and they don't look like they're in alignment. They don't look like they are living life to the fullest. Okay. So anyway, and you need to be in alignment physically. And I'll tell you, anybody who I have talked to, over 80 years old that really look like they are have a lot of vitality and energy, they all say you have to keep moving. Believe me, once you lose your mobility, it's highly likely you're going to go downhill fast, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And being mobile, we are mobile beings. We are supposed to be moving and active. And when you lose that ability, then a lot of things start to deteriorate. So chemically, we need to be clean, detoxify ourselves. There's all these new dangerous chemicals that are on our food and in our air and coming out of the exhaust pipes of engines and and from factories. So we're being bombarded with all these chemicals that our body has to try and figure out how to metabolize them and eliminate them. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. We're going to talk about that. And emotionally, now that's what I guess I always knew it because we wrote this book called The Stress Connection that talked about how stress, whether it's a physical stress or a mental stress, it all causes physical symptoms. It disrupts organ systems. It disrupts the function of the body, and it almost disrupts everything. And so emotionally, you need to be stable. You need to be able to turn off that stress response and allow your body to relax and to heal. And I've been talking about meditation a lot, and I think it's essential for your emotional well-being is to really meditate and look inwardly so that you can figure out what inside of you is causing the problems that are actually outside of you. And that's a principle that people need to learn, is that if your outside world is chaotic, it's because your inside world is chaotic. And you just think about it. When you are emotionally unstable, your world gets unstable. When you can become emotionally stable, it seems like the world becomes more organized. And that's an old ancient principle called the mirror principle, is that you create what you see, taste, and feel by your consciousness, by your emotional signature, the frequency of your electromagnetic field. And again, we're getting deep. That's kind of my new front